Well, hello everyone. Poison Ivy here, your favorite Batman villain. And today we're going to be talking about something that even I find scary. Taxes. All right, y'all. I had to, if you're wondering what is going on, it is Halloween today, at least the day that this video is being released. And so I just felt like doing something a little fun. So this is my Halloween costume for this year. My family is all Batman villains. And I thought I would just show up and bring a little levity to a subject that we don't always love to talk about. So today, in keeping with our Halloween theme, we are going to be talking about the 5 scary consequences of not being ready for tax season. Okay, so this is going to apply to my business owners that I'm usually talking to on this channel, but a lot of these are also going to apply to you even if you are filing just regular personal taxes. Now, I'm not making this video to be an alarmist. I just want to make sure that people are prepared for tax season. So whether this is maybe the first tax season you've gone through as a small business owner or solopreneur and you're wondering, how do I make sure that I don't get into trouble? Or if you just have run into tax trouble before and you want to make sure you have all your ducks in a row, then this video is for you. So let's jump on into it and talk about the first scary tax consequence of not having things ready for taxes, and that is late filing penalties. So you're probably familiar, you're probably aware that if you don't file by April 15th, this is personal taxes we're talking about here, then you are potentially going to have late filing penalties. Now, you could always file a extension. It is generally going to be free to file an extension. You can use something like TurboTax or Tax Act. There are lots of different things that can file these free extensions for you, and then that will reset the clock to October 15th. So always, if you're not going to have things ready, just make sure you do the extension, even if you're not sure, right? Sometimes I will do an extension in March just to make sure that in case I don't get it done, I have that extension on file and I don't forget about it, right? So that's really important to do. Now, what kind of late filing penalties could we have? Well, generally it's going to be 5% of the unpaid balance. So if you have a balance that's due, which if you haven't done your taxes, you probably don't know, but if you do have a balance that is due, then you likely are going to have an assessment on that amount. So it would be 5% a month up to a maximum of 25%. Now, if you don't know what you're going to owe in taxes, if you haven't done them, then it's going to be difficult to really tell what exactly that penalty could come out to be. So just make sure you're doing that extension and you're getting those taxes in on time to avoid it. Okay. Now you might also be asking yourself, well, wait a second, if this is on the unpaid balance, what if I expect a refund, right? What if I don't expect to have an unpaid balance? Well, it's not going to be as big of a deal from a late filing penalty perspective in that case, right? If you are sure, if you're positive you are due a refund, then all you're really doing is delaying getting that refund. So I still recommend going ahead and getting those taxes on file, but you are not going to be getting late filing penalties. Now, a lot of people maybe think they are going to get a refund and then they actually go through the process of doing their taxes and realize, uh-oh, I actually do owe, which is why I still recommend, even if you expect to get a refund, that you go ahead and calculate out your taxes, right? And do that work and have everything ready to go, whether it's by April 15th or even by October 15th if you file that free extension. That will keep you out of the penalty box. Okay, let's go on to the second scary tax consequences of not being ready for tax season, and that is underpayment penalties. And this is one that sneaks up on a lot of my entrepreneurs, right? Underpayment penalties are the fact that they are expecting you to pay in throughout the year. So if you wait until April 15th of the following year to pay any of your taxes for the year before, which happens a lot of time with my entrepreneurs, then you could potentially be subject to underpayment penalties because the IRS wants you to be able to pay those throughout the year, and you need to be really working to estimate what those are going to be. So one really important way to avoid this penalty is to make sure you're paying your estimated taxes throughout the year. If you are an entrepreneur, if you are not having your taxes taken out of your paycheck automatically, then you are responsible for your taxes. And so many of my entrepreneur friends, the first couple of years in business, they often get a surprise at the end of the year where they didn't really prepare, they didn't really put money aside for taxes, they didn't pay in for estimated taxes, and then it caused a problem for them later. Now, the IRS will tend to be pretty easy on you, especially if it's your first year of business and you really have no idea what you're supposed to be paying in estimated taxes. But after after that, they expect that you're going to be paying in throughout the year. One thing to keep in mind here is if you could pay at least what you paid last year, or at least what you owed, should I say, last year in estimated taxes. So if you look back and say, okay, last year in my business and in my personal life, right, I paid in X amount in taxes. This is how much was due to the IRS. You can look and grab that from your tax return. Then you can take that amount and make sure that you're paying in at least that amount throughout the year. If your business has gotten, much more popular and you've sold a lot more, you might want to increase that. But in general, those penalties are not going to kick in unless you didn't pay in at least what you did last year, or 90% of your current year liability. So it gets a little sticky. I know I'm not going to get into all the different details about it, but it is important to know that you want to be estimating as best you can what your tax liability is going to be. And if you're not really sure how to do that, a CPA is a great person to be able to help with this. Now, let's talk about the third scary thing that can happen if you don't have things together for taxes in time, and that is interest charges. So if you have not paid in the amount that you're supposed to pay by April 15th, then you are going to potentially get interest charges on any amounts that you owe, and that interest is not small, okay? It changes, the rate's going to change, but it's not small, and it compounds daily. So every day that goes by that you have not paid in those amounts, you are getting charged interest by the federal government. Do not get into that situation. So make sure that you are paying, because even if you file an extension by April 15th, if you owe money, you're still going to get those interest charges accrued until you pay. So just remember, you always have to pay by April 15th, even if you haven't filed your taxes yet, in order to avoid those charges. And I want to interject really quickly here because we just talked about interest, but you could also have late payment penalties too that would be in conjunction with interest if you hadn't paid by the date, even if you've filed an extension. So that is why it is so important to make sure that you have paid in the amount that is due, or at least an estimate of the amount that is due by April 15th, even if you file an extension. Now, the fourth scary thing that can happen if you don't have things together for your taxes is an audit. And I don't love screaming about audits because I don't think they're really the worst thing in the world. But what you don't want to do is trigger an audit because things are just messy and they don't look quite right, right? The IRS is using essentially an algorithm in a lot of places to be able to figure out when things don't look quite right, right? There are certain triggers, certain ratios, certain numbers that they're going to look at and say, this doesn't look quite right. This might be something we need to audit. And don't think that you're too small for them to audit, because they absolutely audit the small guys too, especially if something is looking amiss in your tax records. So another thing that you can do is make sure things are really buttoned up, really have all of your ducks in a row, right? That you have all of your numbers together in a way that makes sense and you're not missing anything significant. And there are no big red flags that are jumping out to the IRS that are saying, we need to audit you. And the fifth and probably scariest thing that can happen to you if you're not prepared for taxes is legal consequences. So that's the one that we really don't want to get into. And that can happen maybe if we just haven't paid our taxes for years. Maybe we have put it off, but that is technically considered tax evasion. And so if that's you, you're going to want to get with somebody who can represent you with the IRS. You want to get those taxes filed, and then you want to get with somebody who can really help you sort out all of this, right? Typically, legal consequences, especially the worst ones like imprisonment, things like that, are going to be reserved for people who are willfully, doing things, willfully defrauding the government. But there are a lot of cases that can get you into some legal hot water. So you don't want to just, think, well, like I just forgot about it, or I just, I know I've needed to do it. Get your stuff together. Get with somebody. Even if you can't pay all those taxes now, you can work on a payment plan with the IRS, and you're going to be able to not have these massive, big, scary legal consequences potentially hanging over you. So just make sure, keep it going, make some progress, right? Don't hide in the sand from it, because it's not going to go away. All right. It's not going to go away. Make sure that you get all of that sorted, work out a payment plan if you need to, and then get back into the good graces of the IRS, because you don't want to just let it keep going and keep snowballing on you. That is where the scariest consequences come in. So I hope this was helpful and not too distracting. This wig is a little bit causing me me a little bit of itching, so I'm gonna go take it off. Thank you guys for being here. I had such a fun time talking about the scary consequences of taxes on Halloween. If you are looking for something to help you get organized, I have those tools. So go check out what's on the screen. My ultimate tax bundle, potentially, depending on when you're watching this, we may be offering a YouTube special right now. So go to that link and check out the ultimate tax bundle to help you get prepared and ready for taxes so that you don't have to deal with any of these scary consequences. See you soon.